Welcome to episode 4 of Angels at Home, Elderly Care Conversations. My name is Tara, registered nurse at Visiting Angels in Rochester, and I'm here again with
Aimee Tucker, the operations HR director for Visiting Angels in Rochester, Minnesota. And today we're talking episode 4, elderly care myths, what families need to know before making a decision.
This is a great conversation to have. I think there's a lot of myths out there that we can talk about, and this will sort of be our Mythbusters episode of
Yeah, I like
In-Home
that.
Care.
What are the most common elderly care myths you hear about in-home care today, Tara?
Myth number 1 is the story that we like to tell ourselves that we can handle it all. We can do everything. And this myth can be applied to both the elderly person themselves or their adult children and family members that are trying to take care of them in their home. I can do it all.
Yep. I think that is a common myth. And on that, I don't know if we're going to talk about this later or not. I would like to say that another myth about doing it all is that the adult children feel like in order to respect their parents' wishes, it all falls on them. So it's like a twofold situation where you're saying that people believe that they have to do everything to keep someone at home. But I think that the adult children sometimes get stuck in this myth that in order to keep mom and dad at home, this is all going to fall on me.
And even if you might even have siblings, and then you put more pressure on yourself going, well, it's just mom and dad, and there's 4 of us.
Right.
In my family, there are 7 of us. And surely we don't need help. But that love and those good intentions, that's not enough. It doesn't matter how much we love somebody, we can't do all of their cooking and their cleaning and their laundry and refilling their prescriptions and making sure they get their exercise and making sure they get to the doctor and making sure they get out for socialization. You can hear all of that building in my voice when I'm talking. You can't do it all. You can't share it all amongst your siblings if you are lucky enough all to be living near your parents.
Right. So are you saying then the myth is more if we look for help, an outside agency, then I don't love my parents enough, or because I'm farming it out? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, well, the myth is we can do it all. And there are some people who can. I would say the majority of us cannot do it all and do it well. We are that sandwich generation where we're raising a family and we may still be working in our careers and our parents are aging and they need help.
Right.
So what is something's got to give.
Yeah. So what is the answer to that? We already debunked it by saying love and good intentions are not always enough. So then what is the answer?
Us. We are the answer. Visiting Angels.
Okay. Asking for help.
Yeah. Asking for help and getting help from a professional company and a professional caregiver that cares, but doesn't have the same emotional attachment or the same familial relationships.
Right.
That's key.
And actually, asking for help, it does not replace the value and love that the children provide, but it supports them to better be able to love their parents and have that relationship. I think that is a debunk too, like by us stepping in that non-emotional attachment that you were just talking about, we can provide the cooking and the cleaning and the hard stuff. We have to take a shower, we need to get clean, and it it takes that off of adult children or spouses, and they can step in and love their parent or spouse the way they want to without being the bad guy, so to speak.
Exactly. If you think about the quality of time, if you're not the one going, okay, we've got to get you showered and dressed, and I'm going to run the vacuum and sweep the floor, versus if somebody else is there helping with the shower and the dressing and running the vacuum and sweeping the floor, and you just get to go and visit and sit. And you've thinking about that from both the adult child's perspective as well as the parent's perspective. You have quality of time. Your
Correct.
quantity is the same. I've got 2 hours, I've got 3 hours to give you, but what you do in that 2 to 3 hours could be a lot more meaningful to everyone.
Right. Well, I know myth 2. In-home care is too expensive.
We hear that a lot. And
Debunk it for us, Tara.
I think a lot of people are surprised to know that if you have in-home professional care, it's actually less expensive moving into a long-term residential care facility. Some people prefer to move into assisted living. They like it, whether it's from the socialization aspect or they no longer drive and there's a shuttle. There's pluses and minuses. What I really want to focus on are, the benefits. It's not to dismiss the value of assisted living facilities, but it's to accentuate the value of if you have care in your home, it's less expensive in the long run. Many people, their home is paid for, so they're not paying a monthly rent,
Right.
that you are, and then you get your care on your schedule, the way that you need it, and you're surrounded by everything that is familiar and meaningful to you.
Right. And again, like you said, sometimes an assisted living or skilled care is the answer. So, but when you're in that situation where you're not paying a mortgage payment and then you just want to bring somebody in to help a little bit, versus if you're in an assisted living, you are paying something to be there, usually a lot more than what a mortgage payment would be. And then if you want services on top of that, then you're paying on top. So, correct or not?
Yeah, well, some different assisted livings offer different things. Some have like different levels of care. Level 1 is a very basic level where you just might get a med reminder, somebody to help you shower once a week, and basic housekeeping, maybe some meals. Every assisted living facility has a different personality, so to speak.
Right.
As when you have in-home care, the only personality you're dealing with is your own.
Right. I know my in-laws are in a place that they get housekeeping, I think twice a week. And that comes with, and then they get a voucher for 2 meals a week. But any type of, so like you said, med reminders, all of that is 100% a la carte, separate. So I know that for sure.
Yep. And the a la carte charges add up. When you have somebody coming into your home, they might be there, say every Monday and Thursday for 3 or 4 hours. And that you're getting a shower and your laundry is getting done, your linens are getting done, but you can also just spontaneously throw in some extra. I would like to drive and shop for this, or I'm feeling really good today. Can we go for a drive in the country? Can we get some ice cream? Oh, my friend called and we're going to meet for lunch. Can you drop me off at this restaurant? And while I'm sitting there with my friend in this hour, go do these errands.
Correct.
Having
that is another
ability.
Yeah. We just actually hit another point by accident. I'm not even sure if we were going to talk about this one, but being able, having that freedom to go on errands or doctor's appointments. A lot of places do have shuttles, but they're limited as to like certain times that you can go here. And I mean, I can't think of any that has a complete open shuttle. So, and at least in our area, a complete open transportation where anytime, anywhere you need to go, there's someone available to take you. That's not the way that works. So that is another advantage that you hit.
With the in-home care.
Correct.
Yeah, we often find, I mean, we have our point of view is absolutely the best solution because it is so personal, but we often find we're able to please all the people a lot of the times in the family. You know that your parents are being looked after, and so you're happy. You get to, as you know, you get to spend more quality time, and your parents are happy as well.
Yep. Well, myth number 3 would be that caregivers aren't really qualified. They're not nurses.
Whew. I don't like that one because it's so untrue. It's so untrue. Um, Caregivers are the heart and soul of our business. And not only do they truly care, they're very well trained.
Right.
When you have a licensed, reputable in-home care agency like Visiting Angels, our home care license has stringent requirements and rules and regulations that we have to follow, minimums, and then there's the caregivers are receiving the care from a registered nurse who's also available at any time to answer their questions, help them brush up on skills, such as you haven't had a client with a gait belt in 6 months, and now your client is needing a gait belt.
Mm-hmm. I'd also like to say that um, our our caregivers, their job title is caregivers. Most of them, and I last time I checked, it was about 75% are licensed from another job or they just are. So they're either already CNAs coming to, even though we do not require that they have a CNA, they 75% are. We have a lot of retired RNs, or they're in between retirement and they're like, I don't want the hospital, what I've been doing for 30 years. I need to kind of cut back. I need the flexibility, the one-on-one. But so they're retired RNs with still active RN licenses, or LPNs, or we have physical therapists that work for us. So the talent pool and the certifications are there, like you were saying, Tara, from other jobs or professions. And we get the benefits of that. But then even somebody who comes in that isn't one of those things, which right now is about 25%, the training that they have to go through, what the state requires, is one of the toughest states in the United States. And requires, is it 3 hours of dementia training alone, which is really good. And then our one-on-one training. And then you pull it, if you, that's, the state of Minnesota home care. If you pull it into Visiting Angels, then Visiting Angels itself has its own requirements that we follow that is very good. And then you pull it down even further to Rochester, Minnesota, and what we do, like you said, Tara, our heart and soul is about the customer experience, but we love our caregivers as well, and we want them to do well. And most of our caregivers, they're just thirsty for knowledge and want to do better. I don't know what the percentage is, but I can tell you that a majority of our caregivers aren't here for a paycheck. They are honestly, truly here because they want to give back, because they love the connections that they make.
Absolutely. Yeah, the caregivers are definitely qualified. We're not going to send you somebody that can't do the job.
Another point that I think is really important is that when you're dealing with in-home care and you're working with a agency like Visiting Angels, you have a say, or it matters is probably the more important word to say, who you mess with on a personal level. So if we're all about matching clients and caregivers based on personalities, and some caregivers excel at cooking, or some caregivers are really good at homemaking. We have one caregiver who's actually a male who knows how to make a bed like nobody else. We actually send caregivers to him to train them how to make a bed, and our elderly clients love him because of his ability to make a bed like, you just don't see that today. And I know that sounds silly, but it's important to our clients. And there's certain personalities, like some clients love conversation. And so we have caregivers who excel at conversation. Some clients would rather not have conversations. And so we have some caregivers who are very task focused. It doesn't happen in an instant, but we work hard to make those matches work. Whereas I can say in a facility, I've worked in a facility, we work with facilities, it's more you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. They don't have that ability to say, okay, such and such, you're going to this room and you're assigned to this room and you are assigned to this room. No, it's usually you have this whole hallway and you have this whole hallway. And so they don't have that necessarily specialized ability that we do.
Myth number 4, a facility is a better choice because they will have everything that my loved one needs.
Okay. Well, facilities offer a lot. And you don't want to take away from, there are a lot, especially in Rochester, Minnesota, there are some really great assisted living places like pet washes, like inside the facility, which I think is fun and amazing. Movie theaters. But not everyone wants or needs that assisted living, the glamour. I don't know. I'm looking for a better word. Not everybody needs a pet wash or a movie theater or a pickleball court inside, or, a shuttle bus. So all those things.
There are a lot of bells and whistles and cool things that are available in assisted living facilities. The gyms, they have great recumbent bikes or treadmills or weight classes even. There's a lot of bells and whistles that are there, but your loved one you're deciding to move there, or you're talking to your parents about moving there because they've got needs that they're not able to meet independently all the time, reliably at home. And we are able to do that. We can provide that personalized family center approach where when we're there in your home, when you need us there, our full attention is given to the person that needs it. We don't have to worry about being down the hall in this apartment to, make sure that person's taking their medications. We're not running late because somebody had a fall or somebody took longer with a shower or didn't want a shower. I think especially if you need help with your personal cares, it can be difficult for a lot of people to accept that help and then to sit there and say, okay, well, Thursday at 9:15, I have to take a shower, whether, ready or not. If we're there Thursday between, 9 and noon, we can get there. How are you feeling this morning? Did you have your breakfast? Would you like to shower now? And you have that freedom to say, I really don't want to shower now. How about before you leave, allow enough time to get that shower? Or my daughter was here last night and helped me with my shower. I don't need one this week, but instead I would like to focus on, if I sit in this room, let's take everything out of this closet and organize it. You have that flexibility. We're there for your time, for your care.
Yep, that's a really good point. The next one that I see on here, which I think is a good one, and I'd like to twist it a little bit, is home care is a short-term solution. And I just want to throw a little bit of a twist on that because I think that there's a myth for some people that it's just a short-term solution. And then I think for some people, they think, oh, mom and dad don't need that, and thinking that this is a long-term solution, that this has to be what they do now for the rest of their lives. And neither are true. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Tara, on either pendulum?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we can be a short-term solution.
Mm-hmm.
We can be. Sometimes we're just bridging care. Um, Dad's having a knee replacement. You know, my aunt was just diagnosed with cancer. She's going to need chemo and radiation, and she's going to need some help in the home. Or, oh, we didn't expect mom to be in the hospital with pneumonia. She's coming home. She's weak. She's not going to be able to do what she was doing before. That's when we are a short-term solution.
Yep.
We're helping you build a bridge from when you're feeling like you need some help, and we're going to help you get to the other side of that bridge to where you're independent and you're not needing us again. And we're 100% there to support you through that if that's what you need, is that short-term solution for a bridge. Other people, we have clients that we've had for over 10 years, and we've been there. And over the years we've been there, their care, their health, their needs have all changed. And we've been there to consistently support them. And sometimes we've got caregivers that have worked with us for, 10, 15 years that have been with clients for that long.
Yep.
We have the ability to ebb and flow with a person or the care needs of a family. The short-term solution, we can be a short-term solution. We can be a long-term solution. Sometimes we're with a family that has a loved one that was diagnosed with dementia that's still doing really, really great at home. But as time and the years progress, a memory care facility is the best thing. It's the next best choice in care. And we can move with our client to the memory care facility and help them as they adjust to living in a new place. We do that a lot as well. And then eventually, we move on and the memory care takes over. So we offer all of that. Myth number 6.
Can you?
Seniors are socially isolated and would rather move to assisted living or another type of facility.
Okay. Would this be a myth because adult children are making this decision or feeling like if you stay at home, you're going to be more socially isolated? Is that what you're saying kind of there?
I think so. It's just like saying you're taking an age group
Yeah.
in a one size fits all and
Yep.
making an assumption. And there are people who are very social, and as their social circles diminish or change, they do want the social aspect that is there in assisted living. I think that's the biggest place where you're going to have an assisted living or a 55 plus, 65 plus living community. You're going to have a lot more social activities. But there are some that's not them at all. I'd say the majority of people don't move to assisted living purely for the socialization.
Right.
Everybody being concerned about mom and dad's social isolation. Yes, but that's something that we can help to facilitate, is connections with friends and family. If somebody doesn't drive anymore, but they always want to go to their Wednesday morning coffee that they've always had with their friends, we
Right.
drive them to Wednesday morning coffee. We've done that for many clients.
Right. I can speak for, again, my in-laws where they're very socially connected. So, they had to move from their rural home, one way or another. For them, they ended up choosing an assisted living because they were moving from their home anyway, where they were very socially connected. So for them, the choice was, do we buy another house, in Rochester and then have in-home care come in, or do we move? We know we're moving to Rochester, or do we move right into that assisted living? They chose the assisted living because all of those built-in activities and social because they didn't know anybody either way. I'm just thinking of somebody who may be trying to decide in-home care and are social versus moving to an assisted living. That might be a thing as well, where you might be a little bit rural or outside and you already have all your social activities, that if you moved into an assisted living, you would have, it would maybe prohibit access to all those social events where in-home care would help. Someone could drive them to coffee on Thursdays or whatever it is.
Well, and I also don't want to discount the percentage of the population that are introverted, and they're
Right.
not. It's overwhelming, and it can have
What can actually cause damage, hey.
damage. It's too much stimulation. It's too much social interaction, or it's perceived pressure that I have to get out there, or what are people going to think because I don't need all of this. I don't want all of this. It doesn't feel good for who I am. And to keep that, if you are an introverted or somebody that prefers a quieter life and wants to stay at home, you may just need your caregiver coming in, some conversation and care time once a week.
Myth 7 is professional caregivers don't care about their clients and may abuse or steal from them. So that's an interesting myth. I don't know if it matters if they're professional caregivers or not, but I do know that a myth would be that in-home care leaves people more vulnerable to that. So what would you have to say to that?
I think there's some humor in the myth. It's like saying bankers don't care about money.
Yeah.
The airline pilots don't care about passenger safety.
Okay.
People who are who are professional caregivers are there, and they're doing that because they care about people.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think they care more. They really do want to be there. That's, if I didn't care about the elderly and helping them be strong and stay independent and live in their home, I wouldn't be doing this. I would be a different kind of nurse.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I would say about that is that here in Rochester, Minnesota, with Visiting Angels, we go through 2 background checks. We are insured and bonded. I feel like I need to knock on wood here. We have never had that problem. We have policies and procedures that are in place. We have a special training on boundaries. We have for our caregivers where they don't give out their home phone numbers, their cell phone numbers. We're not allowed to visit clients outside of the working time. We have procedures and policies in place that we're not allowed to access any financial information from our clients. I feel really good about the training that we give to our caregivers, but more importantly, what you touched on, Tara, and that is, 2 things. What you touched on, that our caregivers really care about our clients, and that's why they're here. And that goes back to a point we mentioned earlier, that the majority of our caregivers aren't here for a paycheck. A lot of them have jobs outside of Visiting Angels. This is their second job. This is their fun job. So there's something to be said about that. They're here for a different reason, and that is that relationship with the client, that one-on-one. But we do have other policies and procedures and requirements in place that protect from that abuse or stealing. What else would you say about that, Tara?
Well, I think like a specific example that just rings so clear, and especially recording, now that it's fall, the amount of our clients that like to go out for a summer drive and have the caregiver just drive them through the countryside so they, it's relaxing, it's something to do, and they love to stop for an ice cream cone. If they want to purchase an ice cream cone for a caregiver, then they have to have that approval from the office to let us know that they intend to treat the caregiver for ice cream. And then when that does happen, the caregiver sends a message into the office, or they're putting it in there with their charting going, I took Mr. Jones on a drive to the country. He wanted to stop at the Dairy Queen. We each had an ice cream and he treated me for mine.
Yep. Yep.
It's and we see that, it's not the taking advantage. I just really feel like with the thorough vetting and training process that our caregivers go through before they're ever with a client, I think that should give families and clients just an absolute peace of mind and confidence that's not going to happen. And also, if there's ever anything that makes you uncomfortable, you need to call the office and let us know.
Yep. And then we also have the online charting and notes that families can read, and that's completely transparent. So if a family member were to see something, we have checks and balances on our side where we have flags that are raised to certain things. We're actually using AI now as well. And AI has certain wording, phrases that it will produce its own red flag and alert us if it sees something in the notes or the charting that's concerning, which, it's still fairly new. And I know that, AI is scary in some ways, but we have found that to be extremely helpful right now. And it gets smarter as it sees it, and we can tell it, like, if you see anything that says anything about finances or, flag us and we'll read through. And if we have questions, so we're getting in front of any potential problems. And like I said, as an organization, we just don't have that problem. That brings us to the last myth that we have to talk about today. I'm sure there are more, and that is the quality of in-home care is inferior to care that is available in an assisted living or skilled facility. What do you think about that, Tara?
Wrong.
Yep.
Simply true. Okay, so to educate and dispel this myth, caregivers that work for licensed professional in-home agencies like Visiting Angels they undergo extensive training. Depending on the franchise requirement, Visiting Angels has very high quality standard of care and training for their caregivers. And then as well as the state of Minnesota, the comprehensive home care license also has very stringent requirements. So your quality of care is very, very high. And then in Minnesota, the Visiting Angels and any home care agency is also required to have registered nurses on staff and who are also there. As a registered nurse, I'm really available to focus on the individual care plans, the individual needs. Have the time and the availability when there is a crisis or something comes up, change in needs. I am right there. I can be there same day, next day. I'm not the only nurse that works in the office by any means. There's several nurses that work there. And we're there to provide a very, very high quality of care that is also individualized to the person.
Mm-hmm. I think that is debunking if I ever heard it. Where do you think these myths come from? All the ones that we've talked about today, where is that coming from? People's experience or media, outdated thinking?
I think all of the above. I think there's some outdated thinking that it's not going to be as good, or I know somebody that found an in-home caregiver on Craigslist, or
Okay.
or a Facebook job post, those caregivers there might be some people with a heart of gold that are very good. They're not vetted, they're not licensed, they're not overseen by a registered nurse, or they don't have to follow the guidelines, and you're at a higher risk to have a bad experience with
And
them.
and with that, I want to say like something that I'm thinking about. So, word of mouth. I already will talk to people um, who they're like, oh, my mom uses that in Montana. And she, I'll either hear absolutely loves her caregivers or they'll tell me these terrible experiences they had. Number one, they're not with visiting angels, but they, depending on what state you live in and what the state licensing requirements are, can really change the person's experience. But then, even right here in Rochester, Minnesota, I will hear somebody say, oh, yeah, my neighbor had home care with such and such company. And I'm like, I don't even want to be put in that same category. And it's not because, but their licensing is different. So even in the state of Minnesota, we have a comprehensive license, and some agencies might be a home care license. They are different, and what they are allowed to do. So, I just cringe thinking of that sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to be put in that bucket. We're not that. We're, um, so outdated thinking, but you made me think of that when we were talking about where do these come from? And I'm like, oh yeah, I've talked to people before that had a completely different experience with in a different state or with a different agency. So
Yeah, like the media is another one. You get a 2020 48 hours Dateline episode or podcast of, what went wrong with, the senior home care, or she just hired somebody to help her with this, and, what happened next was absolutely horrific. That can that really can it adds to those myths and fear mongering.
yep. Yep.
And it doesn't do anybody any favors. And we tend to remember bad things a lot more than we remember the good things.
That's true too. Do you remember a time when your family's assumptions about home care were completely turned around, Tara?
I do. I think that there are a lot of families that assume it's going to be too expensive, or mom isn't going to get the best care. I can remember one, and in Minnesota, we see a lot of large families. And I think that the more siblings that there are,
Yeah.
the higher the likelihood of disagreement in how mom or dad or both should be cared for. And I can remember we had a large family. There were 9 siblings. They loved their mother. They wanted to respect her wish to live at home, because if she lived at home, she could keep her cat. And she wanted to live at home with her cat and not go to assisted living where she would have to rehome the cat.
Right.
Youngest sibling lived at home, worked full time, but was also expected to meet every single one of his mother's care needs, because the other siblings didn't live in the same town. And all of this was proving not possible. Mom didn't want her son showering. Other siblings thought he could clean better. Some siblings thought he could cook better. And the family assumed that in-home care wouldn't be feasible because it would interrupt both the youngest sibling's life as well as mom's routine. They thought mom wouldn't want strangers in her home, that the caregivers would let the cat out. It was a long list. And we wound up sitting down and talking with the family, working out a schedule and caring for this woman in her home for 3 years, during which time she thrived, the cat thrived, sibling relationships became more peaceful, especially towards the youngest that, was overwhelmed working full time and living at home and trying to care for the mom. And it gave the mom and all of the siblings just a much higher quality of time.
Okay. Wow. there's a lot of information here, a lot of mistruths, and I feel like we need to make this a part 2, because I'm thinking of a couple people who could add a lot of education and insight to some of these myths. The reason they're out there is many, and we talked about those. Some of them are just what's out there on the web, but a lot of it might be old school thinking and people that had experiences with what they're grouping together as an in-home care experience. But there truly is a big difference between what we do visiting angels, Rochester, Minnesota, than maybe even another company. And when you're talking about 10, 15 years ago, what might have happened, and you're bringing that memory up, versus where we are today with home care. So I think we need to do a part 2. What do you think, Tara?
I think part 2, to continue to talk about some preconceived ideas and maybe misconceptions about the value of home care, is an excellent idea.
Okay. So we'll, I can think of a lot of people right off the bat. We'll definitely have a guest speaker for the next time to, maybe you get tired of hearing Tara and I talk alone. I can think of a few people that could bring a lot of wisdom and insight to this topic. So we're going to end episode 4 with a to be continued. Again, I want to encourage you to, like or subscribe to our podcast,
Angels at Home, Elderly Care Conversations.
Thank you. So until next time, we will see you again. That just made me think of and I'm gonna stop for a minute because we may need to edit this. I'm trying to think of my wording. So Tara, I think the next part, I have to go to the bathroom real quick.
We have our home care license has stringent
requirements.
Start over. My voice is skipping.
Sorry, I got distracted for a minute. Can you do it again?
Yep.
This is a great conversation. Okay, I'll take a break.